One of the things that also came up is if we're going to be against a casino, which is in one location, what about online sports betting, which is actually casino in a pocket?
Absolutely. And I think the really interesting thing to see a number of, mainstream media outlets talking about the addiction and the harms inherent with online sports betting, because obviously this is just kind of moving through at a very rapid pace.
It's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. You can get it anywhere. There's no friction. There's nothing there to hold you back. To go to a casino, you have to walk in and be seen. To have an online casino on your phone, nobody has to see what you're doing.
Right.
So it has a little bit of an element of the problem with pornography, right, and that is accessible online. This is the Palmetto Family Show. I'm Steve Pettit, and we are here today with our Executive Vice President, Mr. Randy Page. Randy, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here on my birthday.
I couldn't think of a better day to spend your day than with Palmetto Family on your birthday.
It sounds great. Really enjoyed being at a Senate subcommittee hearing this morning and getting to see some friends and talk through some policy that obviously we're going to get to unpack a little bit here today.
People ask me what's going on, and I'm like, it's like a wow factor going on. There is so much movement, and just in the area of the things that we're most concerned about.
Right.
And we try to influence the State House with biblical values and what we're focused on. And so kind of get us up to speed, Randy, and let's talk.
Well, it's been really interesting over the past essentially 3 weeks. It's kind of been all about gambling. It's gambling this, gambling that. It feels as if they're throwing any type of gambling up against the wall to see what spaghetti of it will stick.
So maybe we should kind of do a little backup here and get to this, because in South Carolina, people, don't probably know what's allowed in South Carolina, what isn't.
Right.
And currently, what's allowed in South Carolina is a state lottery.
We have a state lottery, yes.
And that provides about $500, I think it's in the neighborhood of $500 million a year for educational benefits.
Correct.
So that would be like scholarship money and so
Right.
forth. And that's from kindergarten all the way up through college. So that money covers primarily for people that are attending college, and that supports
Correct.
them in college.
Correct.
But outside of that, there's no gambling in South Carolina. Now, you think about that and think around the country where you have casinos and you have online sports betting, and you have just about every imaginable betting form. And so South Carolina right now is at a huge crossroads, because this year, how many bills came up that had to do with gambling?
Well, I don't know a bill count, but at least 4 different types of gambling have come up this year, and which is very, very unusual.
So tell the folks what those 4 types are.
Sure. So the first one, which was the one that we looked at a good bit, was the casino bill that would allow a casino in South Carolina, specifically at the intersection of I-95 and 26 in Santee. And so that one was, towards the end of last year, it went through subcommittee and committee hearings pretty quickly, and then went to the House floor, where it sat until, the end of January, where House Majority Leader Davey Hyatt then recommitted it back to the Ways and Means Committee.
Which means basically it died.
It died.
For that, at least for this time.
Correct. And so in South Carolina, our legislative sessions are on a 2-year session. So this is the second of that 2-year session. And then, there were a couple of other bills we were looking at that, were all introduced. You had, the bill on horse racing. You had the bill on online sports betting. And then there was a bill yesterday that, had a hearing that there was, some question as to whether it would introduce Video Poker 2.0 back into South Carolina. And so really just there's been a lot on the whole gambling arena. And so you see a lot of, groups weighing in, a lot of lobbyists weighing in. And, because to have, yesterday we had 2 hearings on gambling related bills. Then this morning we had a hearing on a gambling related bill. That's just really, really unusual, for all of that to happen so quickly on the Senate side.
So tell us where things stand now on those bills.
Sure. So with the casino bill, obviously it's recommitted, dead for the year. Yesterday, the committee, Senate Finance, considered the horse betting bill, and it failed to get a favorable report. So that means it just languishes. So
tell us, maybe for people who wouldn't know, like where does horse betting go on in South Carolina?
So that would be at, your major places. Aiken would be a place where it would happen. Camden, those would be predominantly because there are a lot of horses, already there. So
those are big events, but it's not like a major horse track like
correct.
Churchill Downs.
Correct. No, it's not Churchill Downs. Okay. Not Churchill Downs. And then, the other thing was in Senate Judiciary, they were looking through a bill that was trying to define some things as to what was gambling and what wasn't gambling. And, Senator Campson, along with Senator Elliott of Greenville and Senator Massey of Edgefield, were just really, really concerned about it possibly being the emergence of a Video Poker 2.0. And so Senator Campson particularly gave a pretty impassioned speech during the session. And then at the end, Senator Massey came in and made a motion to table that particular bill. So that was tabled for the year. And so that effectively kills that for the year. And then we came to this morning where we had a hearing on the online sports betting with a subcommittee. Obviously, you heard testimony predominantly from 3 out-of-state lobbyists who were in favor. And then,
and maybe we should stop there and say where they're from.
Where they're from? Well, I'm not sure where they're from.
Well, one was from Caesar's Palace,
right. One was from Caesar's. One was
Las
from
Vegas.
FanDuel,
and one was from a different company I wasn't as aware of,
Prize Picks or something like that. Yeah. So,
I'm assuming that they flew into Columbia.
You would assume so. Well, I mean, one of them literally said that he was, going to catch his flight. So I know that happened. And so, for those who actually signed up to testify, there were 3 out-of-staters in favor, 2 people in state who were opposed. And that would be, you were one of those. And then our good friend, Dr. Tony Beam with the South Carolina Baptist Convention was the other. And so the hearing went along for probably about an hour and a half or so. Some questions were made, back and forth, and then that was carried over. So at this point, that bill will likely come back to the subcommittee for more consideration and for a vote, and then it would proceed, if it's successful, to committee and then to the floor and make its way.
So if we could maybe sum it up here, we've had basically 4 different types of bills that have come, and 4 gambling, positive. Right. And so 3 of those bills have been at least put on the back burner, or they've been they're dying for this session.
Correct.
So the big issue right now is online sports betting.
Yes,
so let's just talk about that a little bit. And maybe what was sort of the interesting conversation that we had today, and where it looks like things could be heading.
Yeah, I mean, it was sitting there and listening to testimony from both sides was very interesting. Obviously the whole issue of predictive markets came up, and there was a lot of banter back and forth on that. And then, they were talking about different heat maps where it was showing that people were trying to access, like Caesars or FanDuel's apps here in South Carolina, but couldn't, and so would drive across the border.
Yeah. So to let the audience know, if you want to sports bet in South Carolina, you can't. Now, you might see commercials on television, especially on national programs and that kind of thing, but you can get the app, you can set it all up, but you cannot bet in South Carolina. You have to go across the state line in order to be able to bet. So you'd have to drive to North Carolina.
Correct, unless you use the predictive markets.
Unless you do the predictive markets.
Which, the feds have done a horrible job of reining in, what's going on in the predictive markets. And that's something we probably could talk a whole nother hour about the predictive markets and where those go. And, I think a number of states have already, filed suit to try to rein those in. And it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with those lawsuits, and then see what happens here in South Carolina.
And they also talked about black market online sites that could be from Costa Rica or
Dominican Republic,
anywhere, or somewhere in Europe.
Correct.
And that's just illegal, although it takes place in the state of South Carolina.
Correct.
So it was really interesting sitting there because I definitely felt like a David Goliath moment. Because when you realize that we were actually testifying against online sports betting, and of course, the reason why we stand against these gambling issues, first and foremost, is because gambling is actually, at its very core, is rooted in the desire to get more. And the biblical word for that is called covetousness. And so it is actually legalizing sinful behavior. So we're always going to stand against it in those kind of various forms. But also the Bible is so clear about gaining wealth or earning money through hard work as opposed to chance or luck.
Right.
And so, and the potential of losing. And so one of the things that also came up is if we're going to be against a casino, which is in one location, what about online sports betting, which is actually casino in a pocket?
Yes.
And so that
right here.
Yeah, it's right there. And so for us, it just doesn't make any sense to be against a casino in a location and not be against a casino in a pocket.
Absolutely. And I think, the really interesting thing to do, is as we kind of looked into so much of the ills that came from a casino, mm-hmm. and then to see a number of, mainstream media outlets talking about the addiction and the harms inherent with online sports betting, because obviously this is just kind of moving through at a very rapid pace. And you're seeing what it's doing to young men. And I know in your testimony, you talked about how it really kind of focused on young men. And, I think there was a study that said that 72% of those who bet on sports were young men.
18 to 29 years old.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So in South Carolina, if we legalize online sports betting, it would start at the age of 18 years old. And that would open up, that'd be seniors in high school, all college students, anybody going out into the workplace, or those that are joining the military,
right.
Our soldiers at 18 or 19 years old. Right. And because of the nature of it, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. You can get it anywhere. There's no friction. There's nothing there to hold you back. To go to a casino, you have to walk in and be seen. To have an online casino on your phone, nobody has to see what you're doing.
Right.
So it has a little bit of an element of the problem with pornography,
right.
And that is accessible online.
Right.
So I think the real thing that seems like legislators are struggling with is kind of like the old adage, everybody's doing it. Right. So let's go ahead and legalize it and put restrictions on it, because everybody's going to do it anyway. Can you say something about that, and what's the problem with that way of thinking?
Yeah, I think it's just really interesting to watch that, to me, that just seems like a cop-out of an excuse. I really don't care if everybody's doing it. What's right? what's right for the citizens in our state, what's right for the state, what's right for the culture of our state. And I think for any legislator or any person to look at what is being said in mainstream media right now about the dangers and the harms of online sports betting, you should be willing to take a step back and go, that's a problem. Even in today's, session, there were comments made about the excesses of the social media companies. And I think people are starting to understand what the social media companies have done and started to, to regulate that. But then to watch, whether it's CBS Sunday Morning or 60 Minutes or read the Wall Street Journal and listen to these young men who are so addicted that they take their phones into their shower to make a bet. And then, I believe it was on CBS Sunday Morning with Ted Koppel, where one guy talked about, he had been, lost so much money and was so despondent that he was ready to commit suicide, save for a phone call from his father.
Wow.
And so, I think that as mainstream media looks at this, and as people study this, we really should take a pause and go, is it really working? Are we really missing out? Is that revenue really that important to South Carolina? And I think the answer is a resounding no.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of the amount of money that they're looking at least from the South Carolina Department of Revenue, they do a fiscal analysis on something like this. And the fiscal analysis says that within the first year that South Carolina will make in tax revenue, 12.5% off of the adjusted gaming revenue,
right?
Which they get a lot of write-offs. But it amounts to somewhere around $11 to $31 million in that ballpark. And to give you an idea, the South Carolina state budget is $42 billion.
Billion with a B.
With a big B.
Yes.
And a big, beautiful billion. And so I think it's important for people to realize that $11 to $31 million is sort of like rounding up a number of the state budget. In other words, it's like nothing.
It's peanuts.
It's peanuts. And what really is somewhat irritating is to sit there and to realize that the speakers that were for online sports betting were not from South Carolina.
They were not, no.
They were from Las Vegas. They were from California, wherever they came from. And to let folks know that billions and billions of dollars are going to go out of this state, out of South Carolina, and what's left over is going to be small comparatively, 12.5%, according to what the law says. So I think this ought to disturb believers in South Carolina. And let me tell you, folks, what you can do, because we have tried to make it here at Palmetto Family an opportunity where everybody gets a voice. We have a program called Voter Voice. If you'll go to our website, palmettofamily.org, and you'll see the tab, Take Action, click it on. And if you'll go that, you'll see 4 or 5 different issues that we have that we as an organization are standing for or against. And you'll see sports betting. Just click that on. And then you can actually, within just a matter of minutes, put in your name, your address, your phone number, and they will find your representative and your senator, and you can click send a message. And we already have a pre-written message that opposes, for example, online sports betting, and you can send that to your rep or your senator. And this is really important because this is the way we have an impact today, especially in our technological age, of how to have influence in our state legislature. So let me encourage you to do that. And if you would like to get a text from us letting you know, for example, what is a big win that's just come up, a celebration, or if a vote is coming up, how to actively respond, if you'll go to your text and just type in 50457 and then type in at the bottom Palmetto and click send, then that will sign you up to get text messages from us. And we promise you, we will not ask you for one dime.
That's correct. Yes. So the text will be, like you said, to celebrate wins or to encourage you to action with your legislators. And one of the things that I just want to share is, legislators don't receive lots of input from citizens. And so that phone call, that email, it really does make a difference. And so I would encourage you, don't just say, well, they don't want to listen to me. They don't care what I say. If you're a voter in their district, they care. So pick up the phone, send that email, go to Voter Voice, because they really want to know what their citizens are thinking and what the voters in their district are thinking as they make decisions here in the Senate and in the House. Well, it's been a busy session.
Yes, it has. And we can't cover it all, but at least we want to let you folks know the importance of the issues of the day and that you need to be involved. And so pray for us and then pray for Palmetto family, and God bless you. Thank you for listening today.
Great. Thank you.